So, welcome back to Street Switch Photography. We're back on the grooming scandal and everything else that's going on. I just thought I'd whip it over to me quickly and let's roll the intro. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. So I thought it'd be interesting basically to see what it is that Novora Media actually think about this, a far left YouTube channel that's obviously on YouTube. And if you notice in the back here, this side, I've actually got my sign the right way around this time. But yeah, with all this that's going on with Jess Phillips and everything else and the Labour government and people actually leaving the inquiry and everything, I want to see what excuses Nova Media have actually got, and I thought it'd be interesting to do a video on it. So let's go over to the Firefox browser and let's listen to what they've got to say.
Welcome to Novara Live. I'm Michael Walker. I'm joined by Helena, aka No Justice MTG. Good to see you again.
Absolutely, good to see you.
Here's Bruce.
Looking forward to the show, as always. Good to be back.
Coming up tonight,
You're right, Jim.
Fourth abuse survivor has quit the grooming gang's inquiry. In response, Keir Starmer has insisted it won't be watered down.
Keir Starmer also insisted that he had nothing to do with China and that he's not going against anything against Britain, didn't he? Because he's a frigging liar. But hey-ho.
Complicated. The two candidates to lead the inquiry have now said they don't want to. So the whole thing's a mess. I'll be joined later on by Dan Evans to talk about the Caerphilly by-election. Is Wales swinging to the right? Reform and Plaid are neck and neck to win that by-election. The seat has been held by Labour for over 100 years. Well, not the seat for the Senedd. That's been held by Labour since the Senedd was created in 1999. But the constituency, in terms of the town, let's say, has had a Labour representative for over a century. The warnings about superintelligence are getting louder. I speak to someone from the Institute for the Future of Life. They've organised a letter with some pretty significant signatories. And Andrew Marr concedes he was wrong about Labour. Will anyone defend Keir Starmer? Well, the last pro-Keir Starmer, I suppose, person, commentator, whatever in the country, please stand up. Stay tuned for all of that. Before we get started, though, have you noticed that with the exception of all the content put out in the description, the government inquiry into Britain's grooming gang scandal appears to be falling apart before it's even started? And that's because today, a fourth abuse survivor resigned from their role on the Victims and Survivors Liaison Panel. And then the second shortlisted candidate to run the inquiry resigned.
I'd just like to remind everybody that this is a far left channel and the government are far left. So I don't know what they're going to say. I haven't actually watched this, but it will be interesting to see what excuses they come out with, if they come out with any excuses, or whether they actually support everybody in the country wanting these inquiries into this particular subject.
And that's the second person on a short list of two. So what has led to this fallout? Well, the trouble for the government began on Monday when Fiona Goddard, who's a victim of grooming in Bradford, quit its overseeing panel. Now, Goddard cited concerns that the focus of the inquiry would be diluted, and it would be broadened out beyond cases of street grooming. She also expressed concern at the two people who had been shortlisted to chair the inquiry, and that's former Deputy Chief Constable Jim Gamble and former Head of Child Services in Lambeth, Annie.
So far, so good.
Hudson. And Fiona Goddard wrote this. So she said, the most concerning development of this inquiry has been the identities of the two prospective chairs. One has a background in policing and the other a social worker, the very two services that contributed most to the cover-up of the national mass rape and trafficking of children. This is a disturbing conflict of interest, and I fear the lack of trust in services from years of failings and corruption will have a negative impact in survivor engagement with this inquiry. Now, following that resignation letter, Annie Hudson, who's the former social worker in this scenario, withdrew her application for the role. But more victims have withdrawn from the panel, including Ellie Reynolds, who spoke to Channel 4 News.
What's better after 50, when gym
Let me just
or
get
Tai Chi?
past this advert because
ego.
it's shit.
The other reverses time.
It was almost, don't say anything about the ethnicity. We're going to widen the range. Everything was already planned. There was meetings going on that we didn't know about. It's a scandal. It's completely unfair. And it's got motivation behind it that's not in the favour of the survivors and the victims of this, of the young girls and boys that are still going through it.
Initially, you were told this was going to be a victim and survivor centred process. How far away is it from that now, to your mind?
It's nowhere near a survivor-led process. I just think it's so far from the truth that it's never been about the survivors. It's been about how to cover up the survivors and silence the survivors from moving forward.
Kemi Badenoch today made those resignations from survivors the focus of her questions to Keir Starmer at PMQs.
Mr. Speaker, 4 victims on the Rape Gangs Survivors Panel have resigned. And they've resigned because they've lost all confidence in the government's inquiry.
Now, how many times have people lost any confidence in this government? Quite a hard one to answer that, I think. What do you reckon? I mean, if they're going to be involved in this case, they're going to want all the information actually out there, aren't they? So why would they leave? Because they're scared it'd be watered down, exactly, which is what the government are extremely good at. Let's water it down so it doesn't look as bad.
So I'm giving my first question to one of them, to Fiona. She said, being dismissed and contradicted by a minister when you're telling the truth takes you right back to that feeling of not being believed all over again. Fiona's question is simple. What's the point in speaking up if we're just going to be called liars?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising that on behalf of Fiona, and let me give Fiona and the House my answer.
Here he goes. Bullshit, 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 more bullshit, verbal diarrhoea, more bullshit and more pathological lying via Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, because
the Jimmy Savile loving bugger him. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely.
Grooming scandal was one of the worst scandals of our time. Women and girls were abused and exploited by predatory gangs of men. And survivors have been ignored for many years, including by the state that, of course, is supposed to protect them. My vow to Fiona and them is that this national inquiry will change that. I do acknowledge that in recent days some members...
Change it to suit your narrative is what he meant to say there, I think.
Including Fiona, have decided to step away from the panel. I say this, Mr. Speaker, should they wish to return, the door will always be open. But even if they do not, we owe it to them and to Fiona and to the country to answer the concerns that they have raised. The inquiry is not and will never be watered down. Its scope will not change.
But it will, won't it? It will be watered down. If they've already got concerns at the beginning of the inquiry, it will be watered down, just like he waters everything down and lies about everything. He has not stuck to a single goddamn thing he said in his manifesto. Not one.
We'll examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders, and we will find the right person to chair the inquiry.
So in Kemi Badenoch's question there, she was quoting Fiona Goddard, and there was a statement about a minister dismissing and contradicting Fiona Goddard. Now, that was a reference to Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding, who said this in Parliament yesterday. Allegations of intentional delay, lack of interest, or widening of the inquiry scope and dilution are false. The inquiry will remain laser-focused on grooming gangs, as Baroness Casey.
Now, what I would like to point out is basically this Nova Media are using sources of information from mainstream media. They won't use other sources from independent sources, which is typical. It's literally typical of the far left. Let's carry on. Let's see what he says. But credit to him where credit's due. He gave us some information there that's actually true for a start and shown us Keir Starmer and what Kemi Badenoch said.
Recommended. Now, as those were claims about the inquiry made by Fiona Goddard, she interpreted that as Jess Phillips accusing her of lying. And she said this to GB News.
I think it's quite concerning that she would rather...
That's because Jess Phillips is lying. That is the reason she accused her. What the hell? First mistake.
Try and damage the character of a survivor, then take some responsibility herself. I do think Jess Phillips needs to resign. I think the only logical move forward from this point is her resignation. How can she
100%.
represent women and children's best interests if she would rather try and discredit a survivor, knowing that survivor's being truthful, than take some responsibility herself?
So Fiona Goddard also shared the messages that she says prove that there was a risk of the inquiry being watered down. So these were questions sent by the charity coordinating the inquiry to victims on the oversight panel. So they're called questions for reflection. What do you most want the inquiry to achieve? What areas should it focus on? Are there specific questions or issues you believe the inquiry must address? And then this is the key one. Should the inquiry have an explicit focus on grooming gangs or group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation?
Grooming gangs, because that's why it's called the Grooming Gang Inquiry.
Or take a broader approach. So it's that third question that seems to have worried Fiona Goddard, who then messaged Jess Phillips to say this. Sorry to message again, but if it's supposed to be about grooming gangs, why has the charity that the Home Office has set up to consult with survivors just sent out the agenda for the questions that are going to be asked? And one is, should this be a grooming gang inquiry or group-based CSE, or should this take a broader approach? Every way this is being manipulated away from what it was supposed to be, and it's unfair. And then Fiona Goddard has also shared Jess Phillips' response. She said this.
I've got to agree with Fiona Goddard there, because, I mean, it's basically called the Grooming Gang Inquiry, and that is the reason that this inquiry is being held. For the simple reason, the actual numbers are right. The actual numbers are right from this particular, let's just say, religion for now. They completely outnumber, white individuals. If you were to do the mathematics on it, all you have to do is Google it, and all you have to do is watch the non-mainstream media and look at some of the think tanks that have actually done some research on it, and it's actually very shocking what you will find. Let's carry on anyway. Let's carry on.
Only just picking this up. I don't want you to misunderstand. The reason for the question is because there have been differing views, and we want you to be able to give a clear steer on what you want. I know it's hard to trust, but I can promise you no one is trying to manipulate the response. And it is my view that it is only a grooming gang specific inquiry. But it is not right for me to make that a performance.
Worried about the pace?
Sorry about the adverts, guys.
Don't close the skills gap. Shatter it with the leader, Pluralsight. Guide the new generation of experts. Accelerate their impact. The future of work starts now.
I'm Beverly, and we're at me.
Two adverts. God, they're desperate for money on this channel. Must have it on maxed out.
In Parliament yesterday, especially sort of in the right-wing media on GB News and the like, I kind of feel like what she said there made, some sense, right? It is difficult for people to say, oh, the victims are against this process because we don't know what Parliament did.
Look, what I will say to the honourable gentleman, which he would know if he had done anywhere near the level of work that I have done, is that not all victims and survivors are of the same
virtue signalling
opinion. They are not one homogenous group of people who all...
So people that have been groomed by Pakistani grooming gangs are not one group. Yes, they are, Jess Phillips, you disgusting individual.
All think the same thing, who all want the same exposure, who all want their identities known.
She's victim blaming, literally.
And so what I would say is that I have spoken to Fiona Goddard many times, and I will continue that relationship with her, should that be what she wishes. And every single survivor who has been engaged with, of which there have been many, will have different feelings on this subject.
So she got a lot of criticism for her performance in Parliament yesterday, especially sort of in the right-wing media.
Yes, because she was virtue signaling, victim blaming, and basically trying to make it all about her. And now you're just about to agree with her, aren't you?
Media on GB News and the like. I kind of feel like what she said there made, some sense.
There you go.
Right? It is difficult for people to say, oh, the victims are against this process because we don't know what everyone thinks because most people are anonymous. It's not
because the victims are against the process. It isn't hard to work that out. If the victims say they are against this process and they've left because they're against the process because they're worried it'll be watered down, it makes perfect sense that that is what they're saying. There's no other words in there. There's nothing that can sort of, push you off track or anything else, or try and confuse the dialogue that's going there. Jess Phillips does not want this inquiry to go ahead. She's rubbing her hands together like this, hoping more people will leave, so the grooming gangs don't get noticed. And because the police are involved here, Keir Starmer's involved here, they're all involved. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you find channels like this that actually agree with them, that agree with Labour and Jess Phillips and Keir Starmer and the Mayor of London, and it makes me sick to my stomach.
Exactly, like there's going to be interviews of everyone on that panel. But I suppose, again, 4 people resigning is significant. All this chaos anyway has led to one more development this afternoon, which is the second candidate in line to chair the inquiry withdrawing his application. Let's find out why he would do that, shall we? Jim Gamble and Anna Hudson have stepped down, leaving behind the victims, as victims say they have lost faith in the process. Released the following statement, as I say, Jim Gamble, so former deputy chief police officer. So he said, "I had hoped that my track record of fierce independence and child-centred focus, particularly in the CEOP Centre, which I presume is Child Exploitation something centre, and in the operational policing maybe, and in the 15 years since I resigned from the police would have enabled me to proceed and hold the organisations and individuals who failed these young people to account whilst driving real change."
Let's see what Nigel's got to say.
I certainly think that you're right to say that the Tories are making a kind of political deal out of this. Of course, there are probably plenty of people on the benches who have a genuine...
The Tories are making a political deal out of this.
Genuine care in violence against women and girls, especially violence against children, sexual violence, etc., etc. I'm not disparaging their concerns over this issue. It does, however, kind of sting a little bit, given the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, who's the one who is steam forwarding with what's going on here, was quite literally the Minister for Women and Equalities in the previous government, who had every opportunity...
And if you were thinking, dude, you were right. Hence the male pattern baldness and stubble.
...to be the one doing this inquiry in the first place, given the unsatisfactory conclusion of the Casey review, and didn't do so. She was too busy trying to convince the Financial Conduct Authority to be less trans-inclusive, rather than concentrating on things that actually matter. But regardless, the actual government team forwarding with what's going on here was quite literally the Minister for Women and Equalities in the previous government, who had every opportunity to be the one doing this inquiry in the first place, given the unsatisfactory conclusion of the Casey review, and didn't do so. She was too busy trying to convince the Financial Conduct Authority to be less trans-inclusive, rather than concentrating on things that actually matter. But regardless, the actual government do come out of this looking pretty bad. Jess Phillips is one of them, right? Now, I certainly think that there is some level to which that this is looking a little bit unfair on her, insofar as
there is no level whatsoever that this looks unfair on her if she did her job properly that she was elected to do. And that would be to protect her constituents and do what her constituents want her to do. Because she's involved in it as well. They all are. I'm going to pick up on this video again tomorrow because it's getting quite late now. I want to settle down for the evening and watch a little bit of TV. And this has been Street Switch Photography. I hope the quality's been okay for you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Go and hit that notification bell. And I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Roll the outro.
Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.